Can you guys hear me okay? Oh, there we go. Welcome to the Building a Voiceover Career panel. I am Zach Hanks. I'm a panelist, but Bob Carter, our moderator, is stuck behind an accident, and he's not in the accident.
Thank goodness.
Yes. So he's on his way, and I'm going to kind of wing it and moderate in the meantime. With us is Brian Bremer and Nicole Britton.
Hi.
We're all Atlanta-based voiceover actors. And yeah, so we're here to field questions and kind of give you guys a perspective on this. So thank you. I haven't done anything yet.
We like how you talk.
Thank you. That's. I mean, I guess it's appropriate. That's really the extent of my talent right there. So before we start, because this is kind of a funny marriage of the topic, which is building a voiceover career, which is kind of an entertainment industry thing, but we're at a video game conference, which is a little more of a software Silicon Valley industry thing. What I wanted to do was basically field maybe 5 questions. I just want to hear the questions. We're not going to answer them yet, but just hear what the questions are so that we can get a sense of how we can tailor this to what may be a slightly different audience than we're used to talking to. Like when we talk about these things to prospective voice actors, we're probably largely talking to to theater people, to actors, to broadcasters, and stuff like that. And we're at a conference full of investors and programmers and designers and all that sort of stuff. So we just want to make sure that this is something that's going to be useful for y'all.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys want to know about, what kind of questions you have for us. So Zach wants to take those questions.
Yeah. So let's basically lightning round. The single most compelling question that you've got, the answer that you want to leave this panel with today.
Where's the best place to find a trainer for your voice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where do I find training?
Mm-hmm.
Good training.
How does voice acting in the gaming industry differ from other mediums?
Excellent question. And how? And
we should be writing these down. That's a really good question.
That's the kind of stuff.
We'll remember them.
So.
Can you repeat them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first question was where do I find a good trainer? Or where do I find good training? The second one was in what way does voiceover work differ in the video game industry versus other industries?
Commercial narration.
Yes.
What's the best way to start a voice acting career?
What's the best way to start? So so we're talking like literally first steps from nothing. Yep.
Playing off that one, should I do narration, voice acting, radio?
Diversity.
Yeah. Like what should I start with? What should I do? That's actually a very important question because everyone wants to start with animation.
Yeah.
And 99% of them will never see a single job.
That's true.
Yes.
As an instructor, what are 3 things that I need to be doing to get my students prepared to work with voice acting?
So you're an instructor. You're an instructor of voiceover or of acting in general or a theater instructor?
Game design and development instructor.
You're video game design and development, and you want to know what
are the 3 things that I need to get to them so that way when they work with you guys, it's a more seamless process.
So that's more of a dialogue recording production question. That's my wheelhouse, and I'll be happy to address that. In fact, we might, because it's a little tangential, how about I stay after? And you and I can talk about that. Okay. And I'm not going to hawk my wares. I'm not really doing production anymore, but I'll point you in the right direction. Sure.
I've got a.
Oh, awesome.
I've got a quick answer for him.
Why don't Brian wants to give you a quick answer?
I just want to address what you said. It's a terrific question because I have directors ask me all the time, how can I prepare to work with actors? What do I need to know to work with actors? And the first thing I tell them is take an acting class. Go and take one yourself. Like go sit in on a, and it doesn't have to be a voiceover acting class. It can be a scene study class, an improvisation class. Work with, start understanding actors and their temperament and how to communicate with them. The most important thing your folks are going to need to learn is how to communicate creatively with actors in a way that's leading them to the right place without necessarily, although in voiceover we often get line reads, but without telling them exactly, letting them, it's a creative collaboration. So learning to collaborate. So understanding their minds taking an acting class, getting into the mind of what they're doing, whether they want to be actors or not, is one way that will help them.
Yeah, Randall Ryan at Hamster Ball Studios, who produces voiceover in Austin for games, has pursued this, and so has Andrea Toyas at Blizzard Entertainment. World of Warcraft. I mean, why am I telling you guys? You guys know what Blizzard Entertainment is. Has done that as well. So it's definitely becoming kind of a fairly standard practice for people that want to learn that stuff. So it's a good place to start. But we'll talk more about the nuts and bolts. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So.
Did we have one more? Did you have a question?
Yeah. Was there one more?
I was wondering, what kind of relationships you have with
Okay, so what kind of equipment do I need to go into professional voice acting? The way I'll go ahead and frame the question, because we'll definitely address that, is what's the threshold? Like where is my equipment, my acoustic treatment, all that sort of, my space, all that sort of stuff. Where am I below the threshold, where the audio I'm delivering is so poor that it can't be considered as professional? And where am I above the threshold? And it's also worth noting, where is like the diminishing returns point? Where am I buying a $2,000 mic? And I'm in a closet with no treatment, and I've spent my money in the wrong place. So that's a thing. Yes.
Moving on again, if you have a portfolio of narration, can you submit that for game acting or animation or
We'll address that. I think I've got a handle on the specific questions.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw sort of a couple of starter questions to y'all.
Okay.
And I'll just try to keep us on pace,
Okay. Yeah.
And while I write down their specific questions and make sure that we address those.
Great.
So first, let's start off with introductions.
Hey, Bob.
Hey,
Oh, you do so well.
So let me brief Bob real quick.
Hey.
So here's where we're at.
Yes.
I wanted to find a way to kind of marry the entertainment industry building a voiceover career with the fact that we have an audience of game people.
Yes.
And so we fielded a lot of questions, and it's an interesting melange of sort of your voiceover basics, equipment, how do I break in, where do I find training, with things that are a little more video game specific, like what's the difference between video game VO and other things like that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to write down those specific questions, and I was about to pass it to them for introductions.
Sounds perfect.
So why don't you take the helm, and I'll write the stuff down, and you can peek at my page.
Certainly. Again, I want to apologize for being late. Imagine traffic in Atlanta, right? So for those who do not know me, why not? My name is Bob Carter. I'm a voice actor. I'd love to be a resource for you. So anytime you have a need for voiceover, or if you have any auditions, please consider me. All right. I'm also a voice coach. We teach voice acting. We help aspiring creatives become working creatives at the Neighborhood Studio in Norcross. So I'm on the air here regionally as Carter. You guys might have heard me on 99X, Dave FM, Power 96, Your Georgia Country. I'm on a cluster of stations in Myrtle Beach. Obviously, no, I'm throwing out the broadcasting side of voiceover, right? Yeah. You also know me as Baraka and Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat, Balrog from Street Fighter, Odin from Smite, right? You also know me from My Hero Academia, from Space Patrol Luluco, Justice, that sort of thing. So I'm a longtime anime and video game actor as well, so I can talk about that. To be a working voice actor, you got to do it all. So we can talk about a lot of different things, from the business side to also the fun video game and anime and animation side as well. So that's who I am, and I'm going to kick it down.
Great. You guys go and come back.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Nicole Britton, and I primarily voice commercials. I work for Pandora and iHeart, and I do a lot of narration for various and sundry companies. Some of it is not very glamorous at all, but the money is good.
Yes.
It's just, training new employees at Sally Beauty Supply how to run the computer system and things like that. So there's kind of a great source of income there as well. I just recorded my first video game, an RPG over the last year called Domen, and I don't know when that will be released, but it's been really exciting to narrate that show. Yeah, very cool. Thank you. I spend a lot of time in a 3x3 little closet in my house with a nice microphone and my kids staring at me through the glass going, "Hey, Mommy, when are you coming out?" But never. Sorry, bring me a snack. So my background is I went to school for theater. I studied at Playwrights Horizons, which is a conservatory in New York City in the late 90s, working with the likes of A.R. Gurney and Christopher Durang and people like that, working off Broadway. Went to LA, had an on-camera career, got to work, did some voiceover for Disney, Imagineering and Teddy Ruxpin. Do you guys ever remember that animatronic little bear? Did voices for that as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And you also teach. Come on. I'm very proud of this fact.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I actually teach an introduction to voiceover class, and then I live down in the Peachtree City area, Noonan, if you guys know where that is, Fayetteville, near Pinewood Studios. On the south side.
Yeah.
And so I occasionally show up at a little studio down there and teach some voiceover classes. Yeah.
So anywhere on the north side, come to me. Anywhere on the south side, go to Nicole.
Yeah, and if you're in the middle, go to these guys.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
On this side of town.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Hey, it's so nice to meet you in person, Bob.
Yes.
I'm Brian, and we know each other, but
Yes.
we've not ever.
Exactly.
I don't think we've ever met
No, we
face to face.
haven't actually physically met.
Yeah,
but we've known
I was
each other
excited
on Facebook
to meet
and-
you today.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope September's doing well. Yeah.
Not this weekend.
Yeah.
My wife has chronic illness,
Yeah.
so it's sometimes a struggle.
Well,
But
please tell her I said hello.
I definitely
and
will.
I'm so glad to meet
she
you.
wanted to be here, actually, because we
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to get here with the kids because they were
Yeah.
talking about families and
Yeah,
video
yeah,
games,
yeah.
and we were excited about that one.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it's great to meet you, actually.
It's really
in
great to
person.
meet you, Bob. I'm Brian Bremer. I am a working voice actor. I consider myself a working actor.
Yes.
I've been working as a professional voice actor for 18 years this year, but I've been an actor since I was 15 years old. And I went to Pepperdine University in California and did a lot of films and TV shows, and found voice acting about 18 years ago and absolutely fell in love with it. My bread and butter is the commercial world, but just recently in my career, I've expanded into animation and video games, and I am Nick in The Walking Dead season 2 from Telltale Games. And thank you. That was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I have a new animated series called Pandas from Bento Box Entertainment that's coming out hopefully sometime this year, where I voice.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. 12 characters over 4 episodes. So you really do have to be a multi-voiced actor
Yes.
if you're going to, because you offer one and the director goes, "What else have you got?"
Yes.
Here's the other one, and hopefully by the time you get to your 4th choice, they're happy.
Love it.
But I do a lot of national commercial campaigns as well. Like Zach said, or like Bob said, you really do have to diversify to have a sustained career. So I do corporate narration. There's a lot of corporate narration in Atlanta because a lot of corporate headquarters are here. A lot of commercial work, national and regional and local. I was on a panel with Dave Fenoy,
Yes.
and someone said, "Well, do you also do commercials and narration?" He goes, "I do whatever they ask me to do." Yeah, of course you do. He was upset in his hotel room auditioning for a corporate internal film. So we consider ourselves working actors, and we love it when we hit those really big jobs. But we also have I don't want to say the nickel and dimes, but you stitch together your career.
Yeah. Well, in baseball terms, you're going for base hits.
Yeah,
you're going for base. It's all about
that's a
getting
good
base
way
hits.
to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's me. I also coach. I'm a private coach. I have students that I coach privately. I have a small roster of private coaches, and I also teach workshops at the Atlanta Voiceover Studio, Mike and Heidi.
Okay.
Kind of the other side of town.
Yes.
Yeah, and we love you guys, and they're wonderful too. And I have an animation workshop actually coming up this Saturday, if I could plug.
Okay.
In the afternoon, and you can learn about that at AtlantaVoiceOverStudio.com.
Very good.
And we talk about animation and video games and that approach, that sort of character actor approach, as opposed to the commercial, which someone asked about what the difference is in those two things. So, yeah, but that's me.
Hi, I'm Zach Hanks. I'm a actor, video. I'm not really acting professionally these days for on camera, but voice actor and video game voice director. I've done some casting as well. Made most of my career in Los Angeles. I have a similar training background. I trained as an actor in theater, and went to conservatory, and then did on camera work, and then fell joyously into voiceover and never looked back. As far as video games go, most of my directing work was in real-time strategy games. I directed the voices for the Company of Heroes franchise, for the Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 2 series, and most recent one was probably Homeworld Shipbreakers. As a voice actor, again, most of that work was when I lived in LA, but franchises like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Final Fantasy, Diablo, World of Warcraft, all that sort of stuff. Let's see. I do teach. I have programs that are sort of a little different. They're kind of what I call comprehensive bundled programs that have a heavy mentoring component. I only work with a few people at a time, and that entity is called the VoiceOver Career Launchpad, and I've got a program for people that want to break in and for people that are already in and want to open the door to video games specifically. As far as sort of my areas of specialization, let's see, voiceover, video games, accents and dialects and phonetics, but my real passion is acting theory. If I could, I think we have approached acting for the last century in a rather ineffective and inefficient way, and I think we're
really.
I do. That's a conversation to have over beer.
Yes, that is.
And
there's beer?
And there will be by the end of the session if I have my way. But I like beer. I like beer.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Too soon.
Oh,
But I have to commend you, sir.
Too soon.
The best compliment I received was that my acting is as convincing as Kavanaugh's testimony.
Wow.
Good one.
All my shots are cheap. All right, so I'll leave it at that. That'll be my last political jab.
But thank you guys all for being here. We're so happy to speak in front of all of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
This is the.
Oh, I know. I saw
Gonna
it.
be a day.
I loved it.
Shall we start with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, what is our first step in becoming a voice actor? Excellent question.
That is a very good question. The first step I think is truly, before you even get a coach, you need to start listening, like actively listening,
great.
full time. It's nothing passive. You can't get up and get popcorn during the commercials anymore. You can't turn them down. You can't turn them off. You can't skip the ads. You have to listen because that is the only way you can stay relevant and understand how to be on trend.
Yeah. And it's everywhere.
And it's everywhere. And the trends are always constantly changing and evolving. And you can ask yourself, can I really do 100 conversational auditions a month? Can I do this? Can I be conversational? Can I speak to someone like they're right next to me, which is what you hear a lot. That's what I listen for in the commercial realm. And so after you ask yourself that question, then you say, all right, great. Who am I going to get to coach? And I have a coach. I always have a coach. In fact, I typically have 2 or 3 doing different things. I coach, just had a great round for radio imaging. That's something that you hear in between the music and the DJ talking. It's usually the call letters of the station or the promos that are going on the radio station. So I had someone work with me for that. I know you've been working with a coach lately as well. I have actually worked with Brian and Bob, and someday we'll work with Zach as well because I'm really fascinated. I need to know what this whole process is. And I did sneakily do this thing, and I watched videos on all of these people and was like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
I was young and I needed the money.
I know.
It wasn't my body.
No judgment. So listen, and then find yourself a really good coach.
It's
Find yourself
Sunday
a really
morning panel.
It's a Sunday morning panel.
I agree with 100% with what
Yeah.
Nicole said. I think education is everything. First you have to learn what it is you're getting into, and find an intro workshop. Just go and see what this is all about. Study with Bob, study at Atlanta Voiceover Studio, and then I always say, my opinion personally, if you have no experience as an actor at all, take an improv class, first of all.
Always.
And listen and see what's out there. But if you have no experience, if you're coming to the table with no experience as an actor, I always say, take a group class.
Yes.
Go and explore, go sit with a group of people who are kind of at the same level you are in an intro class. Learn what is different about this form of acting from on camera or the theater, and see if you like it. Because in a good intro class is going to teach you about the different genres in voiceover. You might hear about something you didn't know existed that you'd like to go into. But take a class. You have to train. Then at that point, I always say you can decide, okay, do I want to go into private coaching now? Do I want to go deeper into my training?
Right.
That's how I like to approach it. I was an actor for many, many years on camera and on stage, like all of you guys. And a family member actually told me 18 years ago, you have such a nice voice, why don't you do something with it? And I never thought about it. And the first thing I did is I took a workshop with Paul Armbruster, God rest his soul.
Rest in peace.
Who trained a lot of us, a lot of us of a certain age who have a career. He was our trainer and mentor. And he had a workshop, and I took the workshop to figure out what that was. Now, I came from a solid, heavy acting background. But you know, everyone arrives in their own
Absolutely.
time. And there's, with voiceover, you can start at any time. I have a lot of folks who are senior citizens
Yes.
who are doing this as
Retired.
a retirement career.
Yeah, it's their passion project.
And their voices are wonderful because they're few and far between.
Yes.
Sometimes the opportunities, but when you need an older voice, there's not a lot of them that are still around.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
that actually can do
Yeah, that can do it. That can handle
Yeah,
nuances.
yeah.
I'm a big believer in building on your life experiences, and there is no one correct path to get into voiceover.
Right,
and in fact, a lot of people from sales backgrounds, right? They've got a certain strength.
And
because,
IT.
Yes, IT as well.
IT people tend to do that.
And also gamers. Honestly, there are a lot of gamers. The people that play D&D, the people that are streaming, the ones that are having a good time, they understand characters because they're playing different characters. But there's no one right way to get into voiceover. So do the intro workshop. We're having one the last Saturday of the month at the neighborhood, Beginner's Guide to Jumping into Voiceover. It's 5 hours. You get hit with a fire hose of information. That's my one plug. You can ask other people about it that have taken it. Don't just take my word for it. Ask around. But definitely do an improv comedy class because that's going to help open you up to new opportunities. And improvisational comedy is very different from stand-up comedy, right? Understand the difference. Stand-up comedy, you're dealing with all your dysfunctional issues and it's a lot of fun. But improvisational comedy is all about contributing to a scene. It's about having a yes and mentality. And it's very, very important, especially for when you're in the booth and the director asks, can you do this? And you say yes, and I'll be happy to demonstrate, right?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a lot of nodding heads, so I'm going to ask you guys, you know what? Can you be a cat for me? Can you be a cat? Yes, and can you go ahead and purr right now? Can I hear you purr?
Wait a minute, Bob.
Yes, and can I hear a good meow, right? Like you just met somebody in an alley, and now it's a territorial battle. Can I hear you? Can I hear you?
Yeah.
Somebody's challenging you. Yes, you, sir. Can you meow?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for the people that are being expressive, I'm like, okay, this is great. I've got a new shiny toy. I can see what I can work with. But when you've got that kind of reluctance within you, that can shut down a production. That can shut down that scene, that moment when you're in the booth, when they need multiple characters. And remember, it's much more cost effective for a director or a project to have one person who can do 10 voices rather than to pay 10 different people who can only do 1 or 2 voices.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about time and money. And so that's why he did that job for 12 voices, 15, right? We've all done those kinds of jobs.
Sure, and you go in with 4 or 5 choices because they're going to go through the list.
Yes.
But I will say this just quickly, you know, you don't have to be a multi-voiced actor to have a career in voiceover.
Absolutely.
To have a career in animation, you need to be a multi-voice actor. And yet a lot of video games, from what I'm understanding, and it was just like The Walking Dead, they're very situational based.
Yes.
They're some that are fantastical characters, but it's a lot of like almost filmic scenes.
Oh, it is. It's all about emotional expressiveness.
Right.
They want you to be real,
Knowing where
but
you
emotionally
are.
expressive.
Yeah. But you don't have to, if you sing here going, gosh, I don't have a lot of voices or a lot of characters or I don't do a lot of character work, there are still ways that you can have a career in the voiceover world.
Oh, absolutely.
Many doors.
Remember, if Gilbert Gottfried can be a successful voice talent, then you too can be a successful voice talent.
Great. That's funny.
Zach.
So on the topic of first steps, like it's already been mentioned, very first step, take an intro class. I agree completely. On the topic of improv, I'm going to go ahead and yes and you. And the thing, when you take that intro class, the advice I would give you is this. Be very clear on what your ROI from that intro class should be.
Return on investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you go into it hoping that you'll be working by the end of it or hoping that you'll even really be that much better by the end of it, you're expecting too much from it.
Yeah.
If you go into it with the looking for the return of answering really just a handful of very simple kind of soft questions. Do I like it?
Yeah.
Do I like these people? Because you'll have to deal with these people, and every kind of industry has its own culture and vibe. I mean, look around you. I feel so overdressed here. You know, like, you're
rude.
But here's the thing. Though. I'm East Coast casual. You're all LA casual.
Yeah.
And like, so every industry and every bit. I really mean this. It's a shorts. My old boss used to it was shorts and flip flops every day to the studio. So
I can't do it.
do I like this? Do I like these people? And then finally, do I actually have aptitude? I don't like the word talent. I think what we perceive as talent is an illusion that's actually the marriage of aptitude and acquired skill.
Absolutely.
But so
Really,
you can't really expect to acquire a lot of skill in a 4-week or a 6-week class. You'll develop some, but not a lot. But what you can figure out is, do I have aptitude? And if you have a lot of aptitude, you may want to go full steam ahead. If you have no aptitude, you might want to either quit or accept that you're going to have to work twice as hard and invest twice as much. And if you want to do that, Godspeed.
Can I jump on something you said as well and yes and you?
Absolutely.
Or jump on you and yes and you? So here's, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Just forget it. Forget I'm even here. I want to speak to what you said about oh God, I knew I shouldn't have showed up this morning.
Actually, I think we're finding out there's a reason why you're married.
Right. I want to speak to what Zach said about ask that soft question, do you like it? Because I always say when we're doing when we're speaking to people who are starting out for the first time, I say, I will give you some information and tools over the next several hours. You need to figure out if you love this.
Yes.
Because this is a freelance lifestyle. Yes. It is a long game. I have students ask me all the time, when am I going to make 6 figures in voiceover? I'm like, I don't have a crystal ball.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, I mean, make 6 figures. When am I going to make 6 figures? Yeah.
And there's no such thing as overnight success.
No, there's not.
Work very hard.
Yeah, we work very hard to do where we are. And there is no guarantee. So your love of what this is, your love of this craft is what will get you through those early years where you're developing your business, getting your contacts, studying, becoming good at what you do, investing in your equipment. Someone asked me, so it's a lot of hard work. So I think figuring out, do you like it? Do you love this? I mean, that's really critical with any creative career that you embark upon. You don't want to be in it for fame or money or recognition, because those are the wrong motivating factors. It's, do you love the work? Do you want to be the best at this that you can be? It's a really important point, because so many people do come into our industry with stars in their eyes. When I got off the bus, literally in Los Angeles at 18 years old, and saw everything around me was what I'd seen on TV, I had stars in my eyes, and it impacted my career as a young man. I didn't know that you have to learn, you have to prepare. You can't just go in and go, here I am. Yeah. You have to be ready, and it will give you an advantage if you look at this business in a very realistic way. It's a business. It's about networking, it's about contacts, it's about education, learning, like Zach said.
It is not about having the best voice.
No.
It's about, can you take direction well and give the director what he or she wants, what they need. Yeah. Remember that. That is the most important skill when it comes to voiceover and being a successful voice talent or voice actor. Can you give the director what he or she wants when they ask you for it? Yeah. It's extremely important.
I don't find it very convincing when Bob gets up here on the mic and says, it's not about having the best voice. I mean, come on. But Bob's right. I mean, if you've ever heard, Richard Horvitz, Gilbert Gottfried, you really can be a community of one. In video games, I voice 100 varieties of Soldier Number 2. There's 1,000 of me in LA. I'm easily replaceable.
Same here.
Guys like Richard Horvitz, voices like E.G. Daly, they don't have nearly as much competition as regular dude, second to the right. So
guy next door.
But you guys have hero voices. See, you guys have the heroic voices.
That's I mean, who am I to argue with a compliment like that? But there's a place for a lot of different kinds of voices. It's not all the Vox beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, people, always point to Morgan Freeman and Andy Dufresne, and say, he's got such a great voice, And yeah, he's got a great voice, but if he didn't know what to do with it, he wouldn't be Morgan Freeman. He is a storyteller. He is a fantastic actor and storyteller. If he wasn't a fantastic actor and storyteller, he'd be that guy with a great voice that works at State Farm. Yeah. Right? Oh, my insurance agent has such a great voice. He ought to do something with it.
Has anyone in here been told that they have a great voice that they should do?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a wonderful gift. Yeah. It's so nice to hear, and it's very important. It's inspiring, but it's kind of like going out and buying the greatest grand piano, putting it in your house, and expecting that you're going to be a virtuoso. You really have to learn to use the instrument.
Bingo. Great analogy. And not sexual or dirty in any way.
I wasn't, no.
Really good.
And I didn't try to outdo my hero voices. I can't even do it.
But you went there. Thank God you're here.
You already know where to find good training, the four of us. So I'm going to jump to the next question. What makes game voice acting different from voice acting from other media? Or I should say for other media. Yeah. That's a great question, by the way. Good job.
Thank you. Yes. I made it up.
I love that question. I mean,
Yeah. What makes game voice acting different from voice acting for other media?
You guys want to?
Yeah, I have some ideas. I'd like to hear kind of what you have to say, Zach.
All right. I wanted to pause because I will go on for like an hour. So I'm going to try to rein it in. All right. So what makes game voice acting different from voice acting for other media? So I'm going to frame this in sort of two parts. One is what makes this different from sort of the what we think of as like the non-character voiceover forms like narration and commercial announcers and radio DJs and audiobook narration and all that kind of stuff. Different. So, but then I also want to reference what makes video game voiceover palpably different from animation voiceover.
Yeah.
And it's the root of my argument that actors should not have combination animation game demos, and why actors should not go necessarily to like assume that animation training prepares them for games or vice versa.
Right.
Because I mean, personally, like I had a lot of experience with games, and I really struggled to book cartoons, regardless of the things that I brought to the table that were effective for game bookings. So they are very different animals. So first, what makes game voice acting different from announcer work, narration work? First of all, I would say the premium of acting 101. That if you that vocal versatility, being able to do what I call vocal gymnastics, having a big range, being able to create, being able to contort your vocal tract and your face to create a variety of different kinds of sounds and vocalizations is incredibly useful, but it doesn't supersede acting fundamentals. It augments them. It's not the cake. Versatility is the icing. I argue that with video games, the three primary things that a video game voice actor needs to have that are maybe not that important for other types of voice acting are efficiency. You've got to get through a lot of lines in a limited amount of time, or they have to bring you back, and time is money.
Yes.
So what built Nolan North's career, besides his like acting ability and charisma and all that stuff, was that Nolan North was one of the first actors I ever directed. So was Dave Fennoy. I directed Nolan North before Nolan North was Nolan North, we would bring in Nolan because he was a rocket. Because we would schedule 100 lines an hour for 4 hours. So that's 400 lines at 2 takes per line, 800 takes. Nolan would get through 600. The Reaper in Overwatch, Keith Ferguson, also Blue from Foster's Home from Imaginary Friends, also 600. He was 50% faster than most of the other talent. Dave Fennoy also is a rocket. Nolan North could be 45 minutes late, and you'd still end the session 45 minutes early. So efficiency. The second one is endurance. Mm-hmm. Can you get through it without losing your voice, or without your voice becoming altered from the strenuous vocalization so that line 400 sounds like it's a different character than line 1? And then the third one is versatility, but kind of like what Brian was saying, for the most part, you're usually not being called in for 10 voices or 12 voices or 20 voices. You're usually being called in for 1, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And the union contract is even sort of built around that number.
Yes.
Is it the same video games where I know in an animated series on a union contract they can get you for up to 4 voices for the same?
It's 3 for video games, and the reason for that is the video game contract. The original video game contract was based on the animation contract when they were first coming up with it, which is why it's been so part of why it's been so contentious, because the needs of video game developers are very different.
Yes, indeed. That's a big
when you
story,
have to
isn't it?
deal with a 50-hour kind of media than a 30-minute or 22-minute. So, but versatility helps you book more than it helps you actually do the job. It's efficiency and endurance. So, so acting 101 is huge. Every single voice actor who's good at video games is, I would argue, is really one of the best actors they're the best actors I've ever encountered. Better than actors I worked with on big regional stages, better than actors I worked with in feature films. The video game actors were astounding, even the ones who didn't have formal acting training, like Steve Bloom, who's coming from a different angle. He's an astounding actor, and I would cast him in Shakespeare before I would cast most graduates of the major classical training programs, including Juilliard.
Wow.
I would cast Steve Bloom in a heartbeat first, and he would give a better performance. As long as it was voice only. Movement I can't say. Maybe so, but I can't say. So, so that's what makes it different from other voiceover forms, and I'm going to sum up how it's different from animation much more briefly. Animation is character acting for comedy, primarily, for young audiences, primarily. Video game voice acting is character acting primarily for action thrillers, horror, war films, those sorts of genres, for an audience of largely mid-30s men. So when you consider those things, I think it makes it much clearer why I argue that you should have a separate video game demo from a separate animation demo. Totally different genres, totally different audiences. So that's it.
Actually, but I do need to point out, because we're here at Siege, we're also talking about non-union versus union, and you're used to working union jobs, right?
True, but where are you going with what's the thing that you're commenting on?
Because there are more game companies that are coming into Georgia now that are specifically hiring non-union talent,
right?
And there are a lot of game developers here who are hiring non-union talent.
It's a right to work state,
right?
Well, and
but what I'm asking is, what is the point I made that applies to union that doesn't apply to non-union?
Well,
I'm just not clear on it.
Because there are people who are starting out here and they've got to get their grind done, and so they're going to end up doing some of these different jobs. Now, again, everything you just pointed out is perfect, and I absolutely agree. But I'm just saying that they need to be aware that they're going to be asked to do other things here because it's a right to work state than if it were just union. So that's where the jobs of like 12 characters come in. That's also where you can be.
So you're arguing that in non-union there's a lot more jobs where you're coming in to do 12 roles.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's something I was unaware of.
Yes. Yeah. And also.
So that may be a thing.
And there are also times when it can be dangerous. I ended up having to do a job. It was it's a large project I can't talk about. If it were any other voice talent, I would have. If it were another voice actor, I would have had a serious problem. Remember how we talked about yesterday, straining your voice and that kind of risk you're taking on? I've been in the business for a number of years, and this guy was really pushing me hard through the paces, harder than I would have suggested for anybody else, and that concerned me. And that's one of those issues where I worry about that sort of thing. Now, here in Georgia, because it's a right-to-work state, you're dealing with union versus non-union issues and then the challenges of what's going on. And so there's this fine line in terms of pushing actors and pushing projects and what I found, if I could speak to what you were saying, because this tangentially takes us sort of to the talent agency relationship and how important that is in this current climate and in our state. Yes.
In this state, you're going to be approached directly for work from clients, and you're going to get work from talent agencies.
Yes.
It's important that you understand what the union has done in setting fair working conditions, safe working conditions, fair wages, and fair rates, and that you stand up for yourself, even if it means you have to say no to a job if there's no agent involved that can negotiate on your behalf. Because people will try to take advantage of you. They'll try to get you to do something for nothing, and you end up undermining the entire industry. And all of us old folk, this old folk has worked for a lot of years to lay a foundation so that you guys can now have a career. You owe that to the people coming after you you as well. So be aware of selling yourself short, selling yourself out. I speak to this because there is a lot of non-union work in the state, and when I moved here from Los Angeles, it was something that was new to me.
It was a smack in the face for you.
But, you know, what I have found is typically in the talent agent world, the talent agencies that get a lot of non-union jobs, they work very, very hard to sort of hit the same standards that the union has set.
At least in terms of rates.
They try to.
Yeah.
And conditions. You know, I have heard, we were talking about Umberger earlier, and I've heard him on the phone in his office going, well, no, you can only do 3 voices for that. If you do more voices, it's going to be another whatever. And so they try to follow those, but you need to be aware of kind of what the union is good for, in my mind, a lot of things actually, but they have spent many, many years deciding this is fair. And they're working now with game developers, as you know, to try and come up with even more fair compensation for the actors as collaborative partners. So be aware of what rates are, what fair working conditions are, and then when you're offered a job directly, you can weigh it and go, well, wow, they may be putting me in jeopardy. They may be putting me in danger. They may be harming my voice or my ability to work the next day.
Go ahead.
You can find rates. There are rate guides online. There's actually one that's put out by the Atlanta Voiceover Studio that's specific to Georgia. There's also the GVAA rate guide.
Yep.
Edge Studio has a rate guide. Just take a look at it. It's going to look like a bunch of nonsense. It's going to look like a bunch of nonsense at first, but when you start seeing those contracts come in, it'll make more sense of like, okay, what is your value? And making sure that you don't undermine.
What is your value? And have the confidence to ask for what you're worth.
And we're not saying to join the union right away, especially when you're starting out. You don't want to join the union right away.
No.
There's a time and a place for it. But also, feel free to contact us when you have questions. We live here. We're not going anywhere. We're established. We've been doing this for a while. So just from a more experienced actor standpoint, we can be, again, that's why you want a good mentor. You want to have a great relationship with someone that you trust for them to be honest and open with you.
And we have some questions.
Yes, we do have 3 questions. Okay, number 1.
Yes.
SAG-AFTRA. They joined forces.
SAG-AFTRA handles interactive. Because it's because Georgia's a right to work state. I'm a union person. I'm on the interactive committee. The video game voice actor strike.
Hey, great.
Sorry, and you're welcome. It's. I'll admit it's been a struggle for me to find arguments for wanting to continue being union now that I'm putting down roots in Georgia.
Right. I hear you.
That are arguments that are not appeals to shame. How could you mercenary, you scab, or appeals to charity. Like, don't you want to refuse all this work, this non-union work, for the betterment of labor as a whole, and as a and those are perfectly fine appeals, but my bank doesn't accept those when the mortgage is due.
Yes.
So it's a tightrope walk. I will say this and echo what everyone here is saying, because the topic here is building a voiceover career. Don't worry about joining the union because you're in Georgia. If you were in Los Angeles or New York, you would need. Well, I would argue you'd need to find someone to guide you through the timing.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what's really
That is great.
It's essential.
But it would be a necessity at a point in your career. Here, and in any right to work state, I am having a hard time finding that point where it's arguable that it is a necessity at all. So.
You're not going to want to join starting out, you're not going to want to join the union until you start missing out on work. That's when you have that dilemma of knowing when it's time.
Or when you have to join.
Yes, or when you have to join. And that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So congratulations, that's a good problem to have. All right.
I have one comment. We had another question, I think, but
yes, we did. We had her.
Sorry.
I think a lot of us younger people, nobody really teaches us how to figure out what we're worth.
And it's a process.
And just trying to find any job, anybody that'll take that. So what did you guys do? I mean, maybe you answered this with the rate guide, but what did you guys do to kind of decide what you were worth? Was it experience? Was it, how many voices can I do? How good am I at that? What's the more factors to make me decide what I'm only going to accept this amount?
The question, for those who couldn't hear, was she wanted to know, how do we figure out what we're worth? and especially coming out of college or just getting started in the industry.
Right.
When I started my career 18 years ago, I've been an actor for much longer than that, but when I started my voice career, the climate was very, very different. All of my work came from talent agencies. I had agencies all over the country or different regions, and LA covered LA and New York, but then different regions. So the jobs that came to me, the rates were told to me back then. You know, the agents knew. Agents are a great resource for what things should cost. The industry has changed now, though, in the last several years because we are technology-based and it's easier for talent to access the equipment. And a lot of clients now expect that you will have at least a basic home studio setup to deliver for web-based files and things. Although now this is another way that video games and animation are a little different from the commercial world, because in video games, the directors often really want you there in person or want to be with you and direct you. It's more like film and TV.
Yeah, it's very true.
But now, since more and more clients, you will have, in order to build a career, you have to have agents that you work with, but you also have to have direct clients. We are now tasked to learn what should different things cost. And in the voiceover world, everything costs something different, because I like to say it's based on, your rate is based on how many ears are hearing your performance and for how long. So there's not only a session fee, ideally, and this isn't always the case.
We call that usage.
Usage, right? So now you just have to learn, you know, an industrial film that's training people in the workplace on good behavior and is only for the employees of the company is going to, category 2, I think that is going to pay something different from a broadcast commercial campaign that's going to run nationally in all major markets for a year. So you just have to go to these websites and look at these wonderful rate cards. And what you'll see is they're all different, but there's an average that you find. If you see, oh, well, this costs $425 on this rate card and $575 here, and here it's $425, then you get an idea of what the average is and what your negotiating power is. As people always say to me, as a beginner, should I charge less? And here's my answer. No. If
Work less.
You may work
less often.
If you and I are up for the same job, I've done this for 18 years, you're brand new. If you get the job, you're going to get paid exactly what I would get paid. I'm a working actor. I mean, there's some things that I get negotiated higher rates on, like The Walking Dead. I got a higher rate because I have a lot of horror movie credits and I'm in that genre. But it wasn't significant. It was like double scale or something. But but for the most part, if I book a Coca-Cola commercial campaign, I'm going to get paid exactly what you would if you booked it and you're a week into it. But you will develop your own rate card so that when clients come to you directly and maybe you're new or you need the experience, well, I can go here. I can't go here. But here's the range, and I can kind of find some place to develop there. And then as you progress, you may charge more, but you'll never go above the cap. So that's what you need to do, is start learning what the different rates cost, and also train. Become the best at what you become the best that you can for where you are in this moment. And I always say to students, here's where you are today. You won't be here 6 months from now. You'll be a completely different actor 6 months from now. So, but that's how. So it used to be told. Short answer, used to be told to us. Now we're charged with kind of knowing. All actors need to know and understand what things should. Cost.
And I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to pay your mortgage. So, I mean, I'm not saying like go out there and put yourself on Fiverr and work for $5. But please do not do that. But I think that understanding the rates and knowing your value will help you get to the point where you need to be. So, and you'll do plenty of negotiating when you're starting out, because you're going to be your own agent if you don't already have representation. It is a bit of a double-edged sword. You got to do the jobs and bring the clients to the table in order for the agents to look at you, and then you're like, well, how do I get the jobs in the first place? And there are a lot of resources for that, and your coaches and people in the voiceover community will help you find. But just collect information, and it will begin to make sense.
I want to re-emphasize the importance of having a mentor, because gathering the information is really useful. What a good mentor will do is sift through it so that you don't get bogged down by TMI, because the internet provides us with literally all the information all the time. So having a good mentor, making sure that mentor is someone who is clear on the challenges you face as a young person who's new to the business in 2018, as opposed to someone who got into it in 1979 in Los Angeles in a union town, pre the 2000 strike that changed everything. You also want to take into account that there are two, in addition to like the job specific considerations, which is the getting paid to actually do the work, which is the session fee, and then and also getting paid for what the work is going to be used for, which is usage. You also have two other considerations that will affect your rates. One is industry standards. And the union sets industry standards for union talent. The Global, Voice Actors Alliance, GVAA, and the Atlanta Voiceover Studio posts what are kind of generally acceptable standards by the general non-union community of working actors. So that gives you a sense of what industry standards are. When you undercut those, your ability to get paid more in the future and all of our ability to continue to get paid what we're getting paid is you're chipping away at that. The more people who will do a national commercial for $5, you're preventing us and future you from getting paid the $20,000 you should be paid for that national commercial.
And on so many levels, because some of these producers who are trying to find lower rates, they're also including what are called conflicts. So if you do a Sprite commercial for me and I give you, $1,000, ooh, you've got $1,000. But in the fine print, it says that for the next year, you can't do any other soft drinks.
Yeah, you can't do Coke.
That's called a conflict, right? So you really have to learn the ins and outs of the business and know what you're getting into. I agree, a mentor is true. Paul was my mentor. Everyone here has said Paul was your mentor.
I didn't know Paul. Bob Carter actually was my mentor.
I thought we talked about Paul too, but so that's critically important. And I'm glad that you're offering that and that you phrase it like, not that you're a teacher, but a mentor, because that is exactly what you need in any creative career.
So what is that, a mentor that teaches you to read the fine print?
A good mentor will tell you exactly that. Yeah.
Yes.
The other sort of thing that's impacting it, in addition to industry standard rates, is the question of what is my voiceover worth? How do I find out what my voiceover is worth?
Yeah.
And so I tried to sum it up for somebody here, and I hope it's helpful. Because an employer will say this job is $300, which will give you the sense that my voiceover for this job is worth $300. When an employer sets a rate, what they're doing is announcing the minimum they're hoping to get away with, and also what the work is, with the value of the work to them. That doesn't say anything about the value of your work as you see it. Okay? So the way I put it is, your pay is never dependent on them recognizing your worth and them giving it to you. They don't assign your worth or value. Your pay is never dependent on them recognizing your worth and them giving it to you. Your pay is always dependent on you deciding your worth and you demanding it of them without reservation. Right. Your pay rates, the number of jobs you get is dependent on your yeses. But the amount of money you actually make doing those jobs, your rates and the value is dependent on your no. How strong that no is, where you apply it, and your willingness to stick by it and to say that not working on this is preferable to working for less than I know my work to be worth.
Yeah.
Got a question here. Yes, sir.
So, can you have a full-time job?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes.
And so, if you're getting going, how much should I put in to start my first course? Can I do it on nights and weekends?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question is, how much time does it take to become a full-time talent? And I say 10 hours a week. My wife is a full-time voice talent for 10 hours a week. Now, to be a voice actor, that varies, but typically 10 hours a week. Of my students, I ask for 5 hours of auditioning time, right? 1 hour a day of auditioning, and then at least 1 hour a day marketing. And I don't care how you market, as long as you market.
Yeah.
So 2 hours a day. Think of it like a workout, right? If you want a really good workout, you want to get in shape, it takes 2 hours. So think of it, and that's why I build my sessions as workouts. And so I want you to have that mindset. You need to have at least an hour a day that you're auditioning, an hour a day that you're marketing. It's all about habits and consistency. Yes. And so if you develop that habit over time, you will be more successful because you're already doing the things that you need to be, or that you need to do to be successful. Now, because voiceover is a global marketplace, if you're working 9 to 5, or if you're working 10 to 6, or if you're working 2 to 10 o'clock at night and you feel bad, don't. Voiceover is a global marketplace, all right? If you can only audition between 8 and 9 p.m., well, guess what? LA is, 3 hours behind us, right? So it's 5 to 6 there. If you can only audition at 5 a.m., great. London and Europe are 6 hours ahead of us, right? Japan is 12 hours ahead or behind us, whatever, ahead of us, right? Sydney is like 18 hours. So my point is, voiceover is a global marketplace. There's always somebody who needs your voice.
And most actors will have to have a day job at some point, if not many points in their career. You know, we're freelance. This is a freelance lifestyle. For the first 8 years of my voice acting career, I had other jobs too, full-time jobs. I produced for television. I was a casting consultant. I worked at a talent agency in the on-camera department, and the union allowed it because I was not going to be an on-camera actor anymore, and I'll do that when it comes up, but I fell in love with voiceover. But it fit very easily because even full-time, as a full-time voice actor, the hour commitment, the commitment is not, I would go on my lunch hour and do my gigs and come back, and my boss was like, great, you're back. Or if I had to stay late at work. Now you have to be careful because some bosses are going to see this as moonlighting, like you're trying to develop a career so you can leave them. And so, don't go back to your workplace and say, Brian Bremer said I could do this, because you might get fired. But you have to have another career to support you on this journey as you go, because you're building a business. And I say don't be too hard on yourself. You have to just figure out what resources you have.
Right.
What can you spend? And that includes time. What are the time resources that you can commit? You will get out of this what you put into it. Some people take longer than others because they have financial commitments that have to be met. Some people have an income that supports them faster. But you totally can and probably will have to have your full-time career, and you just have to figure out, like Bob's saying, where does this fit in?
Into your schedule.
Yeah.
What is a reasonable investment for the classes, to build a studio, to get a microphone?
I would,
Great question.
if you're looking, I'm just going to go, just because are we done at 12:30?
We're done at 12:30.
So I'm gonna try to. We need to wrap up right now.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and lightning round,
Sure.
and then but I'll say that I'm certainly not the final word on anything, as much as I would like to believe I am. I'm not. So maybe there are people on the panel who will hang out for a few minutes afterward if you want to hear other perspectives. But just to lightning round it. I would expect, if you're looking to start to dabble, to start to do your step one, a few $100. That's a class. If you're looking to start a career, like you're like, I'm going all in, I'm going to train, get equipment, everything, I'd save up about $5,000. I'd save up about $5,000.
That's a good number.
Demo.
If you're starting.
Which then connects to what's the minimum threshold for equipment that this gentleman over here was asking about, and that should cover a condenser mic. So we're looking at maybe about a $250 to $300 outlay, about $200 to $300 for your audio interface. You can get the digital audio workstation for free. This is assuming you already have a computer. A few $100 for do-it-yourself. Panels, you can find instructions on YouTube or on the internet for doing your own panels that will cost you maybe $50 a pop, mounting them, training, access to maybe a year's worth of pay-to-play site access, and also a professional quality demo with a little extra money left over for, I don't know, buy yourself a new hat. But you're looking at a low to mid four-figure investment to as your seed money for starting a home business, which is what this is.
That's right.
It's an investment. You're a small business owner. Now, I would say you could get in. You don't have to have that outlay all at the same time, right? And you're just doing a couple of $100. Invest in yourself in that intro workshop, and then we teach how to do it guerrilla style. So for like around $2,000. And then the 5,000. So it's not even $2,000 right away, right? Just a few $100s at a time. So again, you're baby steps. You're walking forward, right? It's just about making forward progress.
And you can always level up. You just keep investing. You buy the microphone now. There's a package actually on Sweetwater, I think, for $299. You can get the condenser, the interface, the cords, the boom, the stand, the pop filter.
Sweetwater.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you got a little setup for
and
you.
Then
they're great.
Yeah. And then also AKG has a great combo on Amazon right now for $150. You get an AKG P220 and the boom mic and the 20-foot XLR cable for $150. Then the PreSonus 96 is $99. If you do it during a holiday, it's $85.
Oh, that's great.
So get that. Again, we can talk about that after, so find us after. If you're interested, we've all got cards. Come and find us, and we're happy to talk about it. But thank you guys very much. Thank you to all the panelists.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Really, thank you guys. Again, I apologize for the traffic.
No.
Thank you very much. Find us later.